The evening settled in as the road from school grew quiet, the sound of footsteps fading one by one. Golden rays stretched across the sidewalk, but in the soft hush of dusk came sharp bursts of laughter, jagged and cold. Alex, raised by a mother who had never taught him the weight of responsibility, walked slowly with his friends. Each word he threw at Emily cutting like a knife. The small girl ahead of them, walking alone, flinched as every cruel remark struck like pebbles tossed into a still pond, sending ripples of pain across her eyes. From a distance, Mark's car rolled into view. He caught the scene in an instant, and it cut through him like a blade. A child learning to grow up by hurting others. In that moment, Mark understood that this short road home wasn't just leading Alex back to his house. It might very well decide the path he would walk for the rest of his life. The first light of morning spilled through the small kitchen window, washing the breakfast table in a soft golden glow. The wooden table was neatly set with simple comforts, buttered toast, sunny-side eggs, and a glass of milk still steaming faintly in the cool air. Sarah moved between the counter and the table with quiet urgency, pouring milk while stealing glances at the clock. A faint shadow of exhaustion lingered on her face after another long overnight shift at the hospital. Across the table sat Alex, her 13-year-old son. He leaned back in his chair, tapping a rhythm on the tabletop with his fingertips, lost in some private beat only he could hear. Tall for his age, Alex carried himself with an easy confidence. His dark eyes gleamed with mischief, and a half-smile hovered at the corners of his mouth, ready to flash into a grin at the slightest opportunity. Alex was smart and quick-witted, the kind of kid who always knew how to capture a room's attention. But beneath that charm lived a streak of arrogance. He loved to tease, to poke fun, to stir a reaction, ever quite cruel, but never thinking too hard about where the line might be. Sarah set a plate of eggs in front of him and exhaled softly. "Eat up, honey. You'll be late for school," she said, her voice carrying a note of authority that softened in the warmth of her gaze. As a single mother, Sarah, 38, had spent years balancing work and parenthood. Her love for Alex was fierce and unwavering, but it often came with a quiet indulgence. Whenever teachers called about a prank or a careless remark, Sarah would smile and defend him. "He's just being playful. He doesn't mean any harm." Over time, Alex had learned that mistakes could be smoothed over, that teasing was just joking around, and that consequences were more suggestion than certainty. In the room next door, Mark, Sarah's younger brother, 35, was buttoning his shirt for work. He didn't share breakfast with them every morning, but his presence in the house always brought a different kind of gravity. Calm and steady, Mark believed in rules, in setting boundaries, in teaching children to respect limits. More than once, he had urged Sarah to be firmer with Alex, to hold him accountable. But Sarah, soft-hearted and tired, rarely let the advice sink in. The clink of cutlery and the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the kitchen as Alex finished his meal. He slung his backpack over one shoulder and shot his mother a quick grin before bolting for the door. "Bye, Mom. Don't work too hard," he called, his voice echoing down the hallway, outside. The crisp morning air smelled of dew and freshly cut grass. Alex kicked at a loose pebble on the sidewalk as he started toward school, the rhythm of his footsteps keeping pace with the music still playing in his head. Around the corner, he spotted a familiar figure, Emily, pedaling slowly along the narrow street. Emily, 11, was small for her age, with neatly tied hair and a soft, thoughtful face. She rode her bike with careful precision, her backpack decorated with stickers of Mario characters and bright Peckerman badges. Emily was quiet, often lost in her own world of games and comics. Her love for things like Pokemon and animated shows made her an easy target for kids who didn't understand her, and a tempting source of entertainment for someone like Alex. A grin spread across Alex's face as he picked up his pace. "Hey, Emily," he called out, his voice teasing but loud enough to carry. "You riding to school or to next week? At this speed, you'll be late for Christmas." Emily tightened her grip on the handlebars, her shoulders stiffening. She didn't turn around, but a faint pink crept into her cheeks. Alex chuckled under his breath, pleased by the small reaction. To him, it was harmless fun, a morning game to break the monotony. To Emily, it was another pebble dropped into a pond already rippling with unease. The sun climbed higher, scattering golden light through the trees and across the quiet street. On the surface, it was a picture-perfect morning, but beneath the glow of that peaceful dawn, the first cracks in Alex's character, the habits shaped by years of gentle excuses and unchecked teasing, were beginning to show. And beside him rode Emily, silent and steady, carrying the quiet weight of being the one who never quite fit in. Asterisk. The brick-paved road to school felt longer than usual that morning. Alex strolled a few steps behind Emily, tossing out small jabs and teasing remarks, each one sharp enough to make her shoulders flinch. To Alex, this was nothing more than his morning warm-up, a harmless routine before class. But the roots of this habit ran far deeper, planted in years of childhood moments he barely remembered. From the time Alex first began to babble, Sarah had built her entire world around him. As a single mother, she was both his anchor and his constant companion. When toddler Alex stumbled while learning to walk or tipped over a guest's drink, Sarah never scolded. She would simply smile, wipe up the mess, and whisper, "It's okay, sweetheart. You were just playing." By preschool, Alex's mischief had grown bolder. He pulled classmates' hair, hid toys, and made silly faces to provoke laughter. Teachers occasionally called Sarah in for a talk, but she always brushed it off with a gentle laugh. "My boy is clever, just a bit playful. Boys will be boys, it's harmless." Those soft defenses, repeated again and again, became a cushion that absorbed every consequence. Each mistake was wrapped in the same comforting phrase, "It's no big deal," in elementary school. Alex refined his talent for grabbing attention. He learned how to deliver a perfectly timed remark to make the class laugh, how to offer a half-hearted apology if a teacher looked upset, and how to sneak a grin when he felt his mother's proud gaze. Every time Sarah heard about his antics, she responded with the same glowing pride. "He's lively, always keeping the class entertained." That's a good thing. Praise for being clever and confident became fertile ground for arrogance. Alex grew accustomed to approval, even when his jokes left someone embarrassed. Responsibility became an abstract idea, something for other kids, not for him. To Alex, making someone squirm or fumble wasn't cruelty. It was performance proof that he could own the spotlight. Now, on this brisk morning, those years of gentle excuses seemed to echo in every step he took. Emily rode quietly ahead of him, her Mario backpack swaying with each careful turn of the pedals. She was 11, small and thoughtful, her hair pulled into a neat side ponytail. Emily loved video games and colorful cartoons, interests Alex had long decided were babyish. To him, she was the perfect target, a way to spark laughter among his friends without ever feeling like he'd crossed a line. A familiar grin spread across Alex's face the grin of someone who believed he could say anything and walk away untouched. Deep down, Alex wasn't cruel, but 13 years of unconditional forgiveness had taught him a dangerous lesson. If Mum always says it's just a joke, then every action can be excused. The early sun filtered through the trees, stretching their shadows across the quiet sidewalk. Two figures moved forward, one small and silent, the other taller, carrying a confidence laced with arrogance. And within that contrast lay the quiet truth of darkness born from years of indulgence, now quietly steering Alex toward a turning point neither he nor Sarah could yet see. By the time Alex turned 13, he had become a name everyone in the 7th grade knew not for grades or athletic skills, but for something sharper. He was the class clown with a twist, the kind of kid whose jokes didn't just make people laugh, but made someone else the punchline. Every morning, as he pushed open the old green metal gate of Brookside Middle School, it felt as if he slipped into a suit of armor. His shoulders squared, his eyes scanned the hallway like a hawk searching for prey. Within seconds, he could spot something, anything, to turn into a weapon wrapped in humor. A milk stain on a friend's hoodie, a crookedly buttoned shirt, the way someone's voice cracked mid-sentence. Words tumbled out of his mouth, quick and sharp, like little arrows tipped with glitter. Laughter always followed. It was the kind of laughter that echoed down tiled hallways and settled in Alex's chest like a spark catching fire. He lived for it. The sound was more than amusement. It was proof of his existence, a crown placed on his head by an invisible audience. Each laugh was a jolt of electricity that told him he mattered, that he was somebody. The more they laughed, the bolder he became. Each morning became a new performance, each hallway a stage, each classmate an unwitting character in his show. Yet behind those bursts of laughter, there were other sounds ones Alex either couldn't hear or refused to. The quiet shuffle of sneakers when kids tried to avoid his gaze, the uneasy coughs, the silence after a forced chuckle. Peter, a shy boy with thick glasses and a hand-me-down backpack, learned this the hard way. One Monday, Alex called him Four Eyes of Doom because of a cracked lens. The nickname stuck like gum under a desk. For weeks, Peter kept his head down, slipping his glasses off during lunch, even if it meant squinting at the world. Another time, Alex caught Lily's voice breaking during roll call and immediately mimicked the squeaky tone in front of the class. The flash of red in her eyes, the way she clenched her notebook until her knuckles whitened, Alex saw it all. And instead of stopping, he felt a wicked thrill. The more embarrassed they are, the funnier it gets, he told himself. Teachers noticed. Notes home multiplied. Disruptive in class, insensitive comments toward peers. Each report followed the same cycle, a stern talk from a teacher, a half-hearted apology from Alex, a shrug as soon as he stepped into the hallway. To him, adults were just part of the script's serious faces delivering lines he had already memorized. They don't get it, he thought. Everyone's laughing. How bad can it be? When Sarah, his mother, couldn't pick him up, it was often Mark, her younger brother, who stood waiting by the curb. Teachers used those moments to vent. They told Mark about tears in the restroom, about kids asking to switch seats to escape Alex's comments. Each story felt like a cold knife sliding between Mark's ribs. This wasn't harmless teasing. It was a pattern, a power Alex was learning to enjoy that night. Mark would sit across from Sarah in the small living room where the faint smell of coffee clung to the curtains. His voice stayed low but firm, carrying the weight of someone who had seen storms forming long before the first drop of rain. "Sarah," he said one evening, hands clasped tightly, "this isn't just kid stuff. Alex is learning to get attention by hurting people. That doesn't go away on its own. You have to set some real boundaries before it gets worse." Sarah, exhausted from a double shift, leaned back against the couch cushions. Her eyes softened, almost pleading. "Mark, he's 13. Kids tease each other. He's smart, funny, maybe a little too quick with his words, but he's just playful. We were the same way at that age, remember?" Her smile was gentle, but it felt like a door closing. Mark exhaled, the sound heavy as gravel. He wanted to push harder, to tell her that playful could harden into cruel. The habits formed now could shape the man Alex would become. But he saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her shoulders sagged beneath the weight of single motherhood. Sarah's love for Alex was fierce, a blanket wrapped so tightly around him that no cold wind could reach. Yet that same blanket kept him from feeling the chill of consequence, the kind that teaches empathy, and so the days rolled on. Alex kept performing, the hallway lights shining like stage lamps, the laughter ringing like applause. Every joke was another brick in a wall. He couldn't see a wall separating him from the quiet, difficult work of understanding other people's pain. He didn't notice the averted gazes, the stiff smiles, the classmates who started taking longer routes between classes just to avoid him. He noticed only the sound of laughter, bright and intoxicating. Underneath the glow of that sound, a small crack was spreading. It was invisible to Alex, but Mark felt it every time he heard a teacher's wary voice. Sarah felt it too, though she buried the feeling under her tired smiles. A crack in the foundation of a boy who had never been told, with unmistakable certainty, "Enough, Alex." Stop. Alex thought he was winning. He thought he was the clever star of his own comedy. But somewhere inside, in the quiet places he never visited, the first seeds of something darker were already taking root. The late afternoon sun slanted across the quiet suburban street, coating the brick school walls in a warm, honey-colored glow. The end-of-day rush had already begun to fade. Most kids were halfway home, their laughter echoing faintly down side streets. Mark drove slowly, the low rumble of his truck blending with the soft buzz of cicadas. His mind drifted as he followed the familiar route. He was thinking about dinner, about reminding Sarah to rest after her late shift, about the small, ordinary rhythms that kept their fragile little family steady. It was supposed to be just another Thursday. Then came the sound, a sharp burst of laughter high and cutting pierced the air, followed by a ripple of voices. It wasn't the easy laughter of kids sharing a joke. There was a jagged edge to it, a tone Mark recognized instantly from years of breaking up playground scuffles, mockery. He slowed instinctively, eyes narrowing. Ahead, near the iron gates of the school, a cluster of students had formed a loose circle, their shoulders hunched forward, heads tilted inward. The way people gather when something or someone's being put on display. Mark eased the truck to the curb, the uneasy feeling crawling up his spine, as he cut the engine. His eyes caught a flash of bright yellow in the center of the ring. It wasn't a balloon or a sign. It was a child. A small figure stood there in a full Pikachu costume, soft yellow fleece with long ears that bobbed every time she shifted her weight. Across her chest hung a handmade sign, carefully outlined with glitter and bright markers. Grand opening today, Rainbow Toy Shop. The letters wavered slightly in the breeze, but Mark could still make out the care behind every stroke. A toy shop. A little girl, barely older than a fifth grader, helping her parents bring attention to a new business. Instead of heading home with her classmates, she was standing there, trying to help her mum and dad. Brave, kind, heartbreakingly earnest, but the sound around her wasn't clapping. It was laughter, and then Mark saw him. Alex, his nephew, stood at the edge of the circle, arms crossed loosely over his chest, a smirk playing across his lips. He looked taller somehow, his confidence making him loom over the small girl like a shadow. His dark eyes sparkled with mischief, the kind that fed on an audience. "Nice costume, peak," Alex called out, his voice loud enough to slice through the fading daylight. "What's the deal? Gonna shock people until they buy your cheap toys?" The crowd erupted. A few boys slapped each other on the shoulders, their laughter bouncing against the school gates. Phones appeared, held up like trophies. Alex took a casual step closer, tilting his head as if inspecting the costume. "What's next? You gonna throw poked balls at us? Or is this some contest for weirdest kid alive?" "Yeah, use Thunderbolt," another boy shouted. "Someone get a picture, this is gold." More laughter exploded. The kind that doesn't just sting, it digs in. Mark's chest tightened as he watched the girl Emily. He remembered her name, now clutch, the sign against her chest. Her small fingers crumpled the paper edges, knuckles whitening as she tried to hold her ground. Her chin dipped, her eyes hidden beneath the soft Pikachu hood. But even from a distance, Mark could see the tremor in her shoulders. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She just stood there, trembling but determined, as though walking away would betray her parents who were counting on her to bring in customers. Something hot and primal surged through Mark. A protective anger, sharp and sudden, burned in his veins. He shoved the truck door open before the engine had fully quieted. The slam of metal echoed like a gunshot, cutting through the chorus of laughter. "Alex," his voice ripped across the pavement low, commanding and furious. The crowd froze mid-laugh. Heads snapped toward the street. Phones lowered, some slipping nervously into pockets. Alex jerked at the sound of his name, his smirk faltering. He turned and saw Mark striding toward them, boots striking the pavement in heavy, deliberate steps. The late sun caught the hard line of Mark's jaw, the fire in his eyes unmistakable. "Uncle Mark." Alex's voice cracked slightly, but he forced a crooked grin. "Hey, we're just Mark didn't slow. Step away, now." The command was a growl, the kind that left no room for negotiation. Alex hesitated, glancing at his friends as if expecting backup. But the boys around him were already backing away, their earlier bravado draining under Mark's stare. Phones disappeared. Sneakers scuffed awkwardly on the pavement. Mark reached Alex in 3 strides, planting a firm hand on his nephew's shoulder and pulling him out of the circle with a sharp, decisive tug. Alex stumbled, caught off guard by the strength behind the gesture. "What do you think you're doing?" Mark's voice was low but vibrating with barely contained fury. Alex tried for a laugh, a thin echo of the swagger he'd worn seconds before. "Relax, Uncle Mark. We're just messing around. It's a joke, a joke." Mark's words cut through the air like shattered glass. His eyes burned into Alex's. "Look at her. Look at her. Tell me if that looks funny to you." He turned Alex by the shoulders, forcing him to face Emily. The little girl lifted her head just enough for their eyes to meet. Her lashes were wet, her cheeks flushed from holding back tears. The sign across her chest now bore a faint, damp smudge where a single tear had fallen. And yet she stood her ground, silent, proud, Heartbroken, Alex froze. The comeback he'd been ready to fire off withered on his lips. His usual mask of confidence cracked under the weight of her gaze. He shifted uneasily, his sneakers scraping against the pavement. Mark felt the heat in his own chest harden into something heavier. He crouched slightly, softening his voice as he addressed Emily. "I'm so sorry," he said, his words carrying a quiet sincerity. "They had no right to treat you like this. You're doing something brave, don't let them take that from you." Emily blinked rapidly, her small chin trembling. She managed the faintest nod, a polite whisper of a smile that only deepened the ache in Mark's heart. Then Mark straightened and turned back to Alex, his face carved from stone. "This ends now," he said, every syllable sharp and final. "You are going to apologize. Not tomorrow. Not later. Right now." Alex swallowed hard. The cocky spark in his eyes had vanished, replaced by something Alex hadn't felt in a long time: accountability. Mark's grip on his shoulder tightened, not in anger now, but in a way that anchored him to the moment. "If I stayed quiet," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper but heavy enough to crush the silence around them, "you'd think this was okay. But it's not. It will never be okay." The circle of kids began to dissolve, drifting away one by one, their laughter replaced by a guilty, uneasy hush. The late summer air seemed suddenly cooler, the fading sun casting long, heavy shadows across the sidewalk, and there they stood, just the three of them. A trembling girl in a Pikachu costume, holding a crumpled sign for her parents' toy store. A boy whose world had never required him to face consequences till now, and a man who refused to let silence excuse cruelty, even when it came from the child he loved. For the first time all day, Alex felt the weight of his choices settle on his shoulders. The sound of laughter that once thrilled him now echoed in his head like something sharp and broken. And Mark, breathing deep against the fading light, knew this was only the beginning of a much harder conversation, one that could no longer wait. The evening air inside Mark's house was so heavy it felt almost alive, pressing against the walls, clinging to the curtains. When the front door clicked shut with a sharp snap, the sound rang through the small home like the crack of a whip. Alex flinched, shoulders tightening instinctively, his sneakers scuffing against the hardwood floor. "Living room, now." Mark's voice cut through the silence like a blade. There was no room for discussion, no warmth left in the single command. Alex obeyed, his steps hesitant and uneven, like each one carried extra weight. He sat on the edge of the couch, stiff-backed and small, as if the cushions might swallow him whole. His sneakers, still dusty from the schoolyard, drubbed together, with a dry squeak that only seemed to make the silence louder. Mark stayed standing, arms crossed, feet planted, his tall frame blocked out the soft glow of the lamp, casting a long shadow over the boy. The yellow light etched every tense muscle in his jaw, every vein standing out against his temples. "Do you," Mark began, each word heavy as stone, "understand what you did today?" Alex swallowed, the sound loud in the quiet room. I was just kidding. We weren't hurting anyone. We were just messing around. It was just a joke." Mark's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping an octave, sharp enough to cut. "A joke. Surrounding a girl, calling her weird, mocking the clothes she wore while everyone laughed. That was your idea of a joke." Alex shifted on the couch, gaze darting toward the carpet. "But everyone was laughing. Emily didn't even cry. She just enough, Alex." Mark's shout cracked like a lightning strike, rattling the framed photos on the wall. Alex jerked upright, heart hammering. He had never heard his uncle's voice rise like that, not once in 13 years. Mark stepped forward, planting both palms firmly on the coffee table with a sharp thud that made the lamp tremble. His eyes burned, dark and unwavering. "Do you have any idea why that girl was wearing that costume? She wasn't dressing up for fun. She was helping her parents advertise their new toy store. Do you know how much courage it takes for a kid to stand out there in front of her classmates, dressed like that, just to help her family? And you," Mark's voice broke for a split second before hardening again, "you turned that courage into a punchline for a crowd." Alex's cheeks flamed red, but he gripped his knees, clinging to the thin armor of denial. "I didn't mean anything bad. Everyone thought it was funny." Mark slammed his hand down on the table again, the sound slicing through the air like a gunshot. Alex flinched so hard his sneakers scraped against the rug. "Listen to me," Mark said, his voice a low growl, every syllable sharp as glass. "Just because people laugh doesn't make something harmless. Their laughter doesn't erase the shame you caused. It doesn't make Emily's humiliation disappear. All it means is that everyone there, including you, joined in the cruelty. And you led it." Alex's breath came faster now, his fingers twisting the fabric of his jeans. Something unfamiliar churned in his chest, fear, shame, a weight he couldn't name. But still, he reached for the only shield he knew. "Kids tease each other all the time," he whispered. "I didn't think it was that serious." Mark straightened to his full height, shoulders tight, drawing in a long, deliberate breath as if he were holding back a wave of rage. When he spoke again, his voice was steadier, but it carried a gravity that filled the room. "Not every tease is harmless. One day, you'll say something to the wrong person, someone who won't laugh, someone who won't shrug it off, and the result won't be a quiet walk home. It could be a fight. It could be a wound you can't take back. Words can leave scars deeper than fists, Alex. I've seen it." The clock on the wall ticked in the silence that followed, each second hammering the message deeper. Alex stared down at his shoes, shoulders trembling in small, almost invisible shivers. For the first time, he felt the sharp edges of his own words. Mark exhaled hard, his chest rising and falling as the anger slowly gave way to something heavier grief. He crouched down to meet Alex's eyes, his voice still firm but now threaded with quiet urgency. "Tomorrow, you and I are going to Emily's parents' shop. You will look her in the eye and apologize. Not because I want it, not because her parents expect it, but because you need to understand that words are powerful. They can lift someone up or crush them, and you must take responsibility for the ones you choose." Alex finally raised his head. His eyes, wide and wet in the dim light, flickered with something new, shame, fear, maybe the faintest spark of understanding. The easy smirk he wore at school was gone. No comeback, no shrug, no escape. He gave the smallest nod, the motion barely more than a breath. Mark held his gaze, anger still simmering but now tempered with a quiet pain. This wasn't just a lecture. Alex felt it in his bones. It was a crossroad, the first real boundary of his young life. A line drawn between the easy thrill of cruel laughter and the harder, heavier work of becoming someone better. The front door creaked open, and a faint afternoon breeze carried the faint smells of the street into the house. Sarah stepped inside, exhausted after a long shift at the hospital, her handbag still swinging from one shoulder. Her hair was slightly messy from rushing, strands falling across her forehead. The moment her eyes landed on Alex, sitting quietly on the sofa with his head bowed, and Mark standing stiffly with arms crossed by the coffee table, her heart sank. Something serious had clearly happened. What happened? Sarah's voice was sharp, threaded with worry and a hint of authority. Mark exhaled slowly, holding back some of the frustration simmering in his chest. His eyes met hers with a seriousness that immediately set the tone. "I brought Alex back from school," he began, voice low and deliberate. He and a few classmates were harassing Emily at the school gate. The teasing escalated to the point that she had to step back, her eyes red, trying to hold back tears. "I spoke with Alex already, very seriously." Alex shifted slightly on the sofa, clutching his knees, too afraid to meet either his mother's or his uncle's gaze. His pulse raced, a mix of shame and fear pressing on him. Sarah's protective instincts surged immediately. She stepped closer, scanning Alex's downturned face, feeling an urge to shield him. "Mark, you're blowing this way out of proportion. He's just a kid. Kids tease each other all the time." Alex didn't mean to hurt anyone, he was just joking. Mark's eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened. The anger slowly built like a storm. "Do you even understand what happened?" he asked, voice low but tense. Emily was standing there in her cosplay outfit to help her parents promote their new toy store. And Alex, along with other kids, surrounded her, mocked her, called her weird. "You think that's a joke?" Sarah's lips pressed together as she tried to defend her son. Her voice grew tight with tension, but Alex didn't do anything really bad. He was just teasing. Everyone laughed, didn't they? Isn't that normal? Mark stepped closer, the anger in his eyes flashing like lightning, a combination of frustration and deep disappointment. His voice was calm but sharp. "You don't get it, Sarah. Alex isn't inherently bad, but this behavior is taking him down the wrong path. He's learning to hurt people, to feel powerful. And you're, by defending him like this, you're teaching him that it's okay to hurt others. One day, he will encounter someone who won't tolerate it. And the consequences won't just be a few tears or a slap on the wrist." Sarah's eyes flared, voice rising, heated and defensive. "You don't understand Alex like I do. He's still a good kid. Mischievous, yes, but good. You're making mountains out of molehills." Mark clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. Frustration and anger coursed through him like fire. His voice trembled with controlled fury. "I can't fix anything if you keep excusing him. You're raising a child who doesn't recognize limits. Do you even see the courage it took for Emily to stand there, helping her parents? And Alex turned that courage into a spectacle. He made it into a joke for others to laugh at. How can you call that harmless?" Sarah, her voice sharp and rising, shot back, "You're being unreasonable. I will not allow you to yell at my son like this. He didn't do anything wrong." Mark's eyes blazed. He stepped forward, voice cutting through the tension in the room. "Wrong." Alex called another child weird, mocked her outfit, stood there with a group laughing at her how. Is that not wrong? He's practicing cruelty, and you're shielding him from realizing it. Alex's small voice trembled as he tried to speak up, seeking a middle ground. "I didn't mean it. It was just funny." Everyone laughed. Mark's voice erupted, echoing off the walls. "Enough, Alex. You think laughter makes it harmless. You think because your friends laughed, it erased her shame. That laughter is complicity, Alex, and you led it." Sarah, trembling but defiant. You're turning a small mistake into a disaster. Alex doesn't deserve this. He's just a child. Mark drew a deep breath, trying to control the anger, but his tone was still firm, almost shaking with emotion. I know Alex isn't evil, but if he doesn't learn boundaries and responsibility, he will keep hurting others. One day, he will face someone who doesn't forgive, and then, the consequences won't be trivial. Sarah's voice hardened, a mixture of fear and defiance. You're trying to scare him. You want him to live in fear. Mark's voice trembled with both anger and pain. No. I want him to learn respect. You're denying him that lesson with your overprotection. Alex needs to understand the world doesn't revolve around his laughter. The tension in the room was palpable. Mark suddenly turned, storming up the stairs, each footfall pounding the wooden steps like a hammer striking metal, emphasizing his anger and frustration. Sarah froze, hands slightly trembling, finally realizing that Mark's fury wasn't baseless. Alex sat stiffly on the sofa, suffocated, uncomfortable, and caught between two strong personalities. He realized today was unlike any other day when he could no longer escape responsibility. A day when even his mother's protective love might not shield him from the consequences of his actions. In the heavy silence that followed, Alex felt, perhaps for the first time, the real weight of words and deeds. A line had been drawn between the comfort of jokes and the challenge of true kindness. He knew he had to make a choice, even if it meant facing both his mother and his uncle. Beneath the tension and chaos, something began to stir in Alex. The first flicker of awareness about consequences, responsibility, and the self. A lesson harsh, uncomfortable, but necessary for growing up and stepping into maturity. A few days had passed since that intense confrontation at home. The memory of Mark's stern words, the sharp echo of "enough, Alex," still lingered in his mind. The world seemed different somehow, heavier yet clearer. He began to notice things he had ignored before, the subtle expressions of classmates, the small gestures of kindness or discomfort that had never registered as important. One late afternoon, the sun was dipping low, casting a warm, orange glow over the streets near the school. Alex was walking home, backpack slung loosely over one shoulder, when he saw Emily standing at the gate again. She was wearing her colorful cosplay outfit, the same one she had donned to help promote her parents' new toy store. Her costume was bright, whimsical, a little too big for her small frame, but she wore it with determination, trying to attract attention for the sake of her family's business. A group of boys had gathered around, whispering and pointing, their laughter sharp and cruel. Alex's stomach tightened. He recognized that same rush he had once felt, the excitement of having someone squirm under the weight of his jokes. But this time, it felt wrong, hollow, and frightening, without thinking. He pushed through the group, his footsteps firm, voice raised with uncharacteristic authority. "Hey, leave her alone." The laughter faltered, fading into awkward silence. Heads turned, eyes wide with shock. Emily froze, her hands gripping the straps of her backpack, unsure whether to trust this sudden intervention. Alex's heart pounded. For the first time, he saw clearly the effect his previous words and actions could have on someone else. He remembered Mark's warning, his mother's overprotectiveness, and finally understood what it all meant. This was not a game. This was real life. Someone's feelings could be hurt, and the laughter of others didn't erase that. "Why are you helping me?" Emily asked quietly, her voice barely audible over the fading whispers. Alex blinked, unsure what to say. The words that once came, Israelitizing, mocking, joking, felt inadequate, even wrong. All he could manage was a small, awkward shrug. I shouldn't have done those things before, he said finally, his voice tinged with genuine regret. Emily looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to read the truth in his eyes. Slowly, she nodded, still uncertain but willing to accept his change. Later that evening, Alex sat alone in his room, staring at his phone. His fingers hovered over the screen before he typed a short, hesitant message. "I'm sorry for what I did before." Pressing send, he felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. This wasn't just a text. It was a first step toward a new understanding of himself and his actions. The next day, he made his way to Emily's house. She was outside, adjusting her cosplay outfit, preparing for another day of promoting her parents' store. Alex approached slowly, each step heavier with the weight of accountability. "Emily," he began, his voice uncertain but firm. "I wanted to say I'm really sorry for teasing you before. I promise I won't ever do it again. Not ever." Emily looked up, surprised, and then, slowly, a small, genuine smile spread across her face. She seemed relieved, perhaps even a little proud, that someone had finally recognized her courage. Alex felt warmth spread through him, new kind of reward, nothing like the laughter he had once craved. This was real. This mattered. From that day on, whenever Emily wore her costume to help with her parents' store, Alex was there not as a teaser, not as a bystander, but as a helper and protector. He would guide her through the crowd, block teasing from others, and sometimes even make small jokes that everyone could laugh at without hurting her. Each gesture, each act of kindness, reinforced the lesson he was learning. Power isn't about making others small. It's about standing up for them. Inside Alex, a profound change was taking root. He realized that growing up was more than age or size. It was understanding the impact of one's actions. True strength wasn't the thrill of a cruel joke, but the courage to apologize, to defend someone, and to choose empathy over easy amusement. He began to notice other things, too. Small acts of bravery, subtle expressions of kindness, the vulnerability of those who dared to be themselves. He started listening, observing, and reflecting in ways he never had before. Every interaction, every choice became an opportunity to practice this newfound awareness, to measure his actions against a higher standard. The laughter he once sought now seemed shallow, a fleeting echo compared to the quiet satisfaction of doing what was right. He felt a sense of responsibility growing in him, responsibility not just to Emily, but to himself and everyone around him. And as he watched Emily laugh genuinely while handing out flyers for her parents' store, Alex felt something he had never felt before, a small, steady pride, rooted not in attention or admiration, but in the knowledge that he had finally chosen the right path. In the days that followed, this pattern continued. Alex's actions became deliberate. He no longer took pleasure in others' discomfort. Instead, he sought opportunities to help, to protect, to encourage. He realized that kindness and respect were more difficult than teasing, but infinitely more rewarding. The boy who once thrived on laughter at others' expense was slowly becoming someone capable of compassion, empathy, and courage. And so, in the quiet glow of that autumn afternoon, the first true lessons of responsibility, awareness, and moral courage took root in Alex's heart, a foundation that would shape the way he saw the world, his friends, and himself for years to come. Night had fully settled over the neighborhood, and a cool breeze swept across the porch, carrying the faint scent of damp leaves and the distant hum of the streets. Mark and Alex sat side by side on the worn wooden bench, the dim yellow light from the house spilling out onto the porch, casting long, soft shadows across the boards. Mark's face showed traces of fatigue from the day, his eyes serious yet calm, while Alex fidgeted slightly, his small hands clutching the edge of the bench, brows furrowed in thought. For a long while, neither spoke. The only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional distant car. Finally, Alex broke the silence, his voice quiet but deliberate. "Uncle, do you think I can become a better person?" Mark turned toward him, his gaze gentle but unwavering. A faint reassuring smile formed on his lips. "Anyone can, Alex," he said. "As long as you truly want to change, truly want to become a better version of yourself." Alex nodded slowly, a small, tentative smile brushing across his face. It wasn't a bright, attention-seeking smile like the ones he flashed at school. Instead, it carried a quiet understanding, a recognition of responsibility. For the first time, he felt the weight of the choices he had made and the path he wanted to follow. The night breeze stirred around them, and Alex looked up at the sky, dotted with countless stars. He silently promised himself that from now on, jokes and teasing would no longer serve as a way to claim attention or entertain the crowd. Instead, he would use his presence and his actions to support others, to protect those who needed help, and to show empathy. Mark watched quietly, sensing the subtle shift within Alex. The boy's posture relaxed slightly, the tension in his shoulders softening. Mark knew that this was the first real moment of reflection for Alex, a moment where he could choose kindness over cruelty, responsibility over careless fun. As the night deepened, the porch remained still, yet within that calm, a seed of growth had quietly taken root. Alex wasn't just a boy who teased and mocked anymore. He was beginning to understand the weight of words, the impact of actions, and the meaning of true courage. Each choice he made from this point forward could build him into someone stronger, more aware, and more compassionate. The story concludes with a subtle but powerful message. Sometimes, a timely intervention, a firm yet caring word, can change the trajectory of a child's life. And for Alex, that night marked the beginning of a transformation, not one of instant perfection, but of steady learning, of empathy taking root, and of the first steps toward becoming a genuinely good person.